Most couples don't get married thinking, one day our marriage is going to shape future generations. They usually are more concerned with figuring out why there's 12 plastic containers but no matching lids, or who accidentally left one sock in the washing machine again. But whether we realize it or not, every marriage is telling a story, and every couple is leaving a legacy. The question isn't if you'll leave one, it's what kind you'll leave. This week, we're talking about building a marriage that points people to Christ, influences the next generation, and leaves something far more valuable than money or possessions. So grab a cup of coffee, go ahead and laugh with us a little this week, and let's discover how ordinary everyday faithfulness can create an extraordinary legacy that lasts for eternity. Welcome to Marriage, Life, and More. This is a podcast about marriage, Bible, and book studies. We interview people with inspiring stories. I'm Daniel Moore, your host, and over here next to me is my beautiful co-host, my wife, Michelle.
Hey, hey.
Thank you guys for joining us this week. If you're not familiar with our show, check out our website at marriagelifeandmore.com. The links to our platforms are there. YouTube and Rumble links are there also. And we're also on your Alexa and Google smart devices. You can also visit us on social, on Facebook, Instagram, and X at CTGap Online. If you're a fan of our show, please subscribe. And feel free to leave a comment on our platforms. Give us a thumbs up or a 5-star review on Apple Podcast. And we thank you in advance for doing that. Well, this week we have made it to episode 12.
Yay!
The very last episode of our series on marriage as a mission. And of course, as usual, just want to make sure you know, if this is maybe the first episode you've tuned into, that we do have a book that this is based on. You can go to our website, marriagelifeandmore.com, and you can purchase the book there on Amazon or anywhere you can get your book online. There's also a 6-session study guide that goes along with it, which works really well for small groups, church groups, whatever it may be. It works really good for that. And so go ahead and pick one up. And if you go back and listen to all these episodes, it goes right with that book. But this week, we're going to be wrapping up the first of 2 episodes here as we finish up this series. This one here is entitled Leaving a Legacy, Marriage That Multiplies.
Most couples don't wake up in the morning sipping coffee across from each other and saying, "Honey, let's talk about the legacy we're building for future generations." No, most mornings look a little different than that. They're usually trying to figure out who left the laundry sitting in the washer long enough to qualify for an archaeological study, who forgot to take the chicken out of the freezer, or why there are 6 coffee mugs scattered throughout the house when there are only 2 people living in it. Legacy? That often sounds like something reserved for billionaires with whose names are engraved on buildings, famous pastors who write best-selling books, or historical figures who accomplish extraordinary things. But according to Scripture, legacy isn't reserved for a select few. It's something every married couple is called to build. The truth is, whether we realize it or not, every marriage is leaving a legacy. The only question is, what kind? Psalm 78:4 reminds us the importance of passing God's faithfulness to the next generation. We will tell the next generation the praiseworthy deeds of the Lord, His power, and the wonders He has done. While this verse is often applied to parenting, it also reflects a broader principle. God desires His people to leave behind evidence of His work in their lives. A godly legacy isn't measured by the size of your bank account, the square footage of your house, or the number of followers on your social media account. It's measured by faithfulness. It's measured by the way you loved each other, served one another, honored Christ together, and impacted the people God placed in your path.
So as we start this week, I think after all the things that we've been through with these different episodes that we've covered in the last 11 episodes, which basically equals out to 22 weeks because each one had 2 episodes in it, this is where we end up at. And this one here, honestly, I think a lot of couples fail in this one because I think in a lot of ways we don't think about the legacy that we're leaving after we're gone from here. And some people do, and they really work hard to strive towards that. They pour into their kids, they pour into their relationships. They try to, be there for help for other couples. There's just a lot of things that goes into what it means to leave a lasting legacy. But then you have a lot of couples that it seems like for most of their marriage, they just slide by, They seem to never really figure it out sometimes, and they just tolerate each other. And, those legacies are not the best kind to leave, because a lot of times those are the ones that the kids grow up watching, and then they create their own issues later on. And so whenever I finished up this book and got to the last chapter, I just felt like this was really the best way to end this, because if you're going to be mission-minded in your marriage, and you're going to make sure that you have a goal in your marriage, you have a mission in your marriage, and you're going to follow that mission, especially the one that God's placed before you, then we know that any time that we do something for God, it needs to be something that somebody behind you looks and remembers that. Mm-hmm. So-and-so did this, God led them in that direction, and they made a huge difference in this area or that area. And you'll leave memories because God had his fingerprints on that. And so that doesn't, our marriages are not exempt from that. Mm-hmm. When it comes down to the establishment that God created, because as we talked from the very beginning of this series here, we know that God created marriage. It was his idea. And he created male and female, man and woman, to have that relationship. And he wanted us to follow his map and follow his blueprint. And we know that anytime God has a blueprint for anything, he has a reason for that. And that means he wants us to be a blessing to other people. He wants us to pour into other people. And he wants to make sure that whenever we do, that we are fulfilled, even within our own selves, that we are making a difference. And so as we get started here this week, the first point here is the greatest inheritance that you can leave behind isn't wealth. It's a life that points others to Jesus. When God designed marriage, he never intended it to be merely a private relationship that existed for personal happiness alone. Marriage was created to display his glory, reflect his character, and become a living testimony of his love. In Ephesians 5:31 and 32, it reveals that marriage points beyond itself to something much bigger. It points to the relationship between Christ and his church. Every act of sacrificial love, every extension of grace, every moment of forgiveness becomes a small picture of the gospel. And, as we look at it that way, think about that for a moment. When a husband chooses patience instead of irritation, what's he doing?
He's reflecting
Christ.
Yeah.
When a wife extends grace instead of keeping score, what is she doing?
Reflecting Christ.
Exactly. And then when you bring both spouses together and they choose unity over being quote unquote right, what are they doing?
Reflecting Christ.
And that last one can be a challenge because in this world that we're in, being human, we always have that want to be right. We want to get everybody to see our side of it and see our point. And some people are way more pushy with that than others. And so that's something that's real hard sometimes for couples to navigate through, is that unity that God has called us to. But as we've been talking about through this whole series, it's all been about that. It's about being a reflection of Christ and being Christ-like in our relationships so that others can see the gospel through us. So sometimes in marriage, two people can spend 20 minutes arguing over where to eat dinner and then spend the next 30 minutes sitting silently in the restaurant that they finally agreed upon. And when that scenario happens, that's not exactly kingdom impact. Yet God continually calls us back to something higher. And, we have to remember that a strong marriage isn't built by winning arguments. It's built by winning hearts.
Yeah.
And I think when we look at it that way, I know for myself, it gives me a whole different outlook on it. And I know that, you and I both have strived. We've both striven in the marriage that we have, especially as we've, fixed the things and the issues that we've had. We've made it a effort to have the priority in our life be God, to keep God in the middle of all of that. And the things that you and I do right now with, the podcast ministry, the marriage ministry, we don't do that to say, look at us. It's far from that. I think, both of us are humble in all of this. We're both super thankful that God's even chosen us to have this type of a ministry, because even within our own selves, we don't feel like we're qualified for that. But God sees more than we do, and He has that plan in front of us. All we have to do is say yes. And when that calling is on our life, He's going to bless what He calls us to. So why don't you go ahead and share the next point there?
Yeah, being right may satisfy your pride for a moment, but preserving unity strengthens your marriage for a lifetime. The legacy God called us to build is not a legacy of perfection. Let me read this again, because that's like the legacy God calls us to build is not a legacy of perfection. That's good news, because none of us could achieve it anyway. Instead, He calls us to leave a legacy of faithfulness. Faithfulness when life is easy. Faithfulness when life is hard. Faithfulness when the finances are tight. And faithfulness when the health challenges arise. Faithfulness when expectations go unmet. Faithfulness when the feelings aren't as strong as they once were. Galatians 6:9 encourages us, "Let us not become weary in doing good, for all the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." Many couples underestimate the power of consistent faithfulness. They think they need some grand accomplishment to make a difference. But often, the greatest legacy is built through thousands of ordinary moments of obedience. A husband praying with his wife before work, or a wife encouraging her husband after a difficult day, a couple serving together in their church, parents modeling forgiveness in front of their children, spouses choosing kindness during stressful seasons. All these moments may seem small, but they are laying bricks in a foundation that can impact generations. Legacy is rarely built in the spotlight. It's built in the quiet faithfulness of everyday life.
And what's interesting to me is, as you were, going through that little section there, all those faithfulness statements, I can look back and we've experienced all of those in our life in the time that we've been married. We've had our moments when it did seem like it was kind of easy for us. We're kind of back to that point now where I feel like, things are a lot smoother sailing than what they've been lots of times before. We've also been where life was hard. Our finances has been tight, several times for long periods of time. And we've had the health challenges. We talked about that in the last couple of weeks on our last couple of episodes. We've had unmet expectations. The feelings aren't strong as they once were. We went through a time in our life when we almost got divorced. It's crazy how when we look at all of that and we realize where we've been and where we are now, it did take faithfulness to get back to that place where we need to be. And God does reward for that. We have to remember that your marriage is writing a story every day. Future generations may read chapters you don't even realize that you're writing. And I think this point is super important, because I think sometimes we do take things for granted. I think that there are some things that we do sometimes as an individual and even as a couple that we think it's just a everyday occurrence. It's something that we kind of do on a normal basis, and we don't really read too much into it. But there are some of those things sometimes people are watching and they are gleaning from that. We don't know. We're unaware, but they are learning from us and what we're doing. Something that we think is just kind of boring and mundane. To them, it's a life-changing, situation for them in that moment. So we always have to, in everything that we do, we have to do it expecting that maybe somebody might be watching.
Yeah.
And they might be learning and growing because of what we're, putting an example of as a married couple. Marriage isn't simply about looking good together and matching Christmas sweaters or posting vacation photos where everyone appears perfectly happy. There's nothing wrong with those things, but that isn't the ultimate goal. The goal is becoming the kind of couple who walks through life hand in hand, shoulder to shoulder, pursuing God's purposes together. If we look at Ecclesiastes 4:9, it reminds us that two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. Marriage was designed to be a partnership, and it was also designed to be one with a purpose.
That's good.
There's a reason for the partnership that we have. God calls couples to become teammates rather than opponents, to fight for each other rather than against each other, and to lock arms against the challenges of life rather than turning on one another when difficulties arise. And that one's real easy to do. If we get under fire on some things, depending on our personalities, especially if it's a personal attack, sometimes we want to just deal with that by ourselves. And we don't have good luck with that sometimes, because that's exactly what it is. It's a person trying to fight through something on their own with no help. And that's a good time when you can lean on your spouse if it's something that they can help, pray beside you, maybe offer you some encouragement. They might even have, some good words of confidence to instill inside of you. There's a lot of things where your spouse is super valuable in those moments. And so we need to always make sure that no matter what trials we go through, to remember that our best battle partner is sitting right beside us, and that's our spouse. So go ahead and share the next one there.
Yeah, the strongest marriages aren't two perfect people standing face to face admiring each other. They're two imperfect people standing shoulder to shoulder pursuing God together. That means weathering the storms together. It means surviving sleepless nights with newborns, toddlers. It means navigating financial pressures. It means extending grace after misunderstandings. It means laughing together when dinner gets burned, vacations plans fall apart, or one spouse confidently insists they know the correct driving route right before getting hopelessly lost. But even in those moments, godly couples keep coming back to the same commitment. We're in this together, not just for our comfort, not just for our happiness, but for God's purposes. But ultimately, marriage is about something bigger than us. The world often encourages couples to chase experiences, popularity, and picture-perfect moment. Yet God's call is different. He calls us to chase impact, to chase faithfulness, to chase obedience, to chase the internal things that matter long after the vacation photos have disappeared and social media posts have been forgotten. The world celebrates moments. God celebrates faithfulness. Your marriage may not make headlines, but it can make an eternal difference.
And now, where we're at this point in our marriage, after everything that we've been through, do you feel like that you've kind of changed how you look at things with our relationship in a more positive manner?
Absolutely.
And whenever you get the opportunity to pour into some close friends, or be able to, they have something come up that they've never navigated, but you and I have, and you're able to go up to them and pray over them and give them encouragement, use us as a testimony, say, you know what, we went through this, and this is what we had to do, and God was right there with us and helped us through all of that. How's that make you feel when you can do that?
Well, I mean, I give the glory to God, first of all. But, it does make me feel like, okay, God, we walked this hard season for a reason, and you're going to utilize me. And so, yeah, it's like he put me at the right place, the right time, and it's according to him.
Yeah. And at that moment, it's up to us to answer that call or ignore it. And anytime that God opens a door, we need to be prepared to walk right through that. And even if we feel like it's a problem that's bigger than us, because there's a lot of those. There's a lot of times we get ourselves in situations where it seems like we just don't know what to do. But that's where God comes in. And we can pull him right to the middle of all of that scenario and ask the Holy Spirit to lead and guide us, to give us wisdom. And we can make it through anything.
Right.
As long as we have, God right there on our side. And so that's why, as you and I have said a few times, neither of us wanted to go through everything we went through, but because we did, and we're already past all of that, we are thankful for what we've been through to be able to pour into other people. And I think that, I cherish those moments that I get the opportunity to pray with someone or to be able to pour into them because they're really hurting. And I've been there and done that. And I have the ability to tell them that I walk this path, and this is how you and I got through it with God in the middle of that. And then if they take the advice with that and they put it into play and then they have success with all of that, it makes that whole testimony worth every bit of it. And there's just things about that. Again, it's not anything to do with us. It's just a place that God has called us to and a place that he has put us in. We're his hands and feet at that moment. And that's, to me, it has a lot to do with what leaving this legacy as a married couple is all about. A marriage centered on purpose will outlast a marriage built solely on feelings. This is a really big one. One day when our lives are finished and our marriage story has been fully written, God won't be asking how many likes our anniversary photos received or how impressive our wedding hashtags were. He'll see something far more important. He'll see whether we love faithfully. He'll see if we serve sacrificially. He'll see if we forgave generously. He'll see if we persevered through difficulties, or if we honored him with the relationship that he entrusted to us. That's the kind of legacy that echoes into eternity. So, as we're going through this episode this week, here's a challenge. Let's be the couples who don't merely coast through marriage. Let's be couples who pursue God together. Let's be couples who laugh often, love deeply, forgive quickly, and serve faithfully. Let's be remembered as the husband and wife who stormed through life in faith, purpose, perseverance, and joy. Because in the end, God isn't simply measuring how comfortable we were. He's looking at how faithful we were. A lasting legacy is not built by extraordinary moments. It is built by ordinary people faithfully walking with an extraordinary God. And that's a legacy worth living.
Yes.
And, there's just so much stuff here that's been packed into this first portion of our episode this week that I hope maybe something that we've covered here has maybe triggered you a little bit to look a little deeper into the marriages that you guys have that are listening. What is your intentions with your marriage? Do you have goals? Are you really concerned with how God looks at the relationship that he's given you and your spouse to the point that you are in a spot that you can actually give of yourselves to others and help them to grow and help them have a better marriage and get more out of life, especially when it comes to living the gospel and being Christ-like in front of them? Those are huge questions that we have to ask as married couples as we walk this path together in this time that we are in. So the next part here that we're going to talk about this week as we continue this episode is discipling younger couples. And why don't you go ahead and start with that?
As we grow and mature in our marriages, it's easy to settle into a rhythm. Date nights required advanced planning. Communication becomes smoother, and we figured out which battles are worth fighting for. But with that experience comes responsibility. Just like Jesus poured into his disciples, sharing wisdom, truth, and humility, we are called to do the same for the younger couples coming behind us. Jesus didn't walk his journey alone. He intentionally gathered people around him, taught them, shared life with them, prepared them to carry the mission forward. His motto wasn't just about preaching sermons. It was about doing life together. He showed them how to rest, how to pray, how to handle conflict, and even how to deal with people who doubted or betrayed you. Because let's be real, every marriage will deal with its share of Judas moments. In the same way, we seasoned couples should be looking around and asking, who can we walk alongside? Not because we have it all figured out. Trust me, sometimes we're still arguing about who left the car on empty. But because we've learned a few things and have the scars and prayer journals to prove it. Discipling younger couples doesn't mean putting together a PowerPoint presentation on communication techniques. It means inviting them into your real life. Show them how you pray together, even when you're both exhausted and one eye is still open. Let them see how you navigate disagreements without tearing each other down. Be honest about your mistakes and generous with your encouragement. The legacy of a strong marriage isn't just what we build in our own home. It's also about the seeds we plant in others. So let's follow Jesus' lead. Let's take a few younger couples under our wing, buy them some coffee, share your mess and your victories, and remind them that God is writing a good story in their marriage as well, because one day they'll be seasoned ones, and hopefully they'll think back and say, we had someone who walked with us, now it's our turn. Discipling a couple isn't about being perfect or having all the right answers. It's about being intentional, authentic, and available. And at its core, it means walking alongside another couple, helping them grow in their relationship with each other and with Christ. It looks a whole lot like real life. Sitting at the dinner table, praying together, sharing honest stories of your own struggles and victories. It's not about creating a flawless sermon on marriage. It's about giving them a front row seat to how God shows up in a real and sometimes messy and sometimes miraculous marriage. Think of it like a spiritual mentorship with a relational twist. It's smiling and saying, we've been there too, and we're still choosing each other every day. But here's how you can do it with God at the center.
And what I love about this is I think back to life group. So we had a life group here for a couple of years with the church that we have right now. Over the past couple of years, we don't have it right at the moment because we've had other things that we've moved on into. But our life group was a wide range of ages. And I think, what would you say? It was probably from the 30s up to 70s?
Yeah.
Probably?
Yeah.
And what was really cool about that was even you and I, we gained so much from the older ones.
Oh, yeah. Loved it.
Oh, we'd be sitting there, sharing stories, and then we'd be going through our lessons and just the different things. And it was so fun just to listen to them talk about their life experiences. And they had good marriages. And so whenever you are actually able to be in the presence of someone like that, that's been married for many, many years.
And who have went through all their messes.
Yeah. And they were actually navigating some family stuff, even in the last couple of years at the age that they're at. Because, at that age, you start losing parents and different kinds of things, had to be caretakers. And so they were going through their own battles. But I just remember, and I'll probably always remember, those times when we'd be sitting here at our house during life group, just listening to the stories that they would share.
Yeah.
And then I also think about older couples at our church that actually do mentor. We've actually got a couple that does marriage mentorship with us. They're one of the mentor couples that are under us for a long time now. They pick out younger couples in the church, and they'll ask them to go eat somewhere, and they'll just pour into them. And then they'll have some that knows that they do that, so they'll come up and ask them, and they'll talk to them about things that are going on in their life. And when I think about stuff like that, I'm like, that's what it's all about. Because we shouldn't waste all the stuff that we go through that we learn lessons from. We need to be utilizing some of that stuff and pouring into other people that are now struggling with what we used to struggle with. And it's a good thing for us to be able to pour into them and to help them to grow. And, I wish that at one point in time earlier when, you and I were having a lot of our issues, back then we really didn't have a whole lot of people that I would really consider were really mentors around us necessarily. It's a God thing that we're married because we did work through a lot of our stuff on our own.
Well, and we hit it. Just like younger couples. Even middle-aged couples. A lot of people don't like talking about their issues to other people.
Yeah. And that's one thing I am thankful for with the couples that were in our life group. They were very open and very real while they were here. They had us laughing constantly. It was so much fun. And I guess what I'm getting at with all of that is just encouraging you. For one thing, that's why it's good to have a church family, because you're going to have that opportunity to be around all different kinds, all different age groups, all different walks of life. You're going to be around the people that it seems like they just had a perfect marriage from day one. And you're going to be around people that'll sit there and tell you that they literally almost got divorced 5 times, but they're still hanging on and they're still plowing through it all. You'll see everything if you take the time to talk to people and allow them to pour into you. And it's a good thing to have older people that have been there and done that, to be there as mentors, because then you feel like you're not all alone. You're not out there on this little island trying to fight for yourself.
Right.
And so we got a few points here to go through on some effective ways that you can disciple a couple and leave a lasting legacy, because we can't stress enough through this episode that you are not married just for yourself. We've been trying to get this point across from the very beginning of this series. God has a purpose for your marriage. He has a purpose for all the things you've been through, all the things that you've been able to overcome and accomplish. There's a reason for all of that, and God wants you to use it. He doesn't want you to just keep it to yourself.
Right.
And so those of you that are listening and you have a church family, or you have a situation where you're in groups all the time where you have younger couples below you that can learn from life experiences you've been through, this is actually, really specifically for you that we're going to go through here. We got 7 things, effective ways that you can disciple a couple. If you're having a question on, well, how do I do that? How do I pour into a couple that's below me or younger? Well, the first thing is be available and approachable. And just as I was just talking, life groups is a good example of a way that you can do that. Open your home and your lives. Invite them over for dinner or coffee. Let them see how you interact in both peace and conflict. Let them ask the hard questions and be real in your responses. And I think, the really good point to that there is to be truthful. You talked about a while ago how we hid stuff. And that's not a good thing when your other people need to learn from you. We need to be a little bit more transparent with the things that we've walked through, because there might be a couple someday that you talk to about an experience that you had, that's the thing they needed right at that moment.
Well, and I think a lot of times some people, when it says open your home and your lives, invite them over for dinner or coffee, a lot of times I feel like people don't feel like their home is not good enough, or we don't want them to come over because, this is the way we live, and, or it's just not good enough for these people. Mm-hmm. I would rather be invited over to a house that's real and lived in than I would be not invited. Yeah. Because honestly, it's kind of like you and me. You're really weird about the house more than I am. And I could care less. We have a big golden doodle that's our son's, and Blue kind of sheds some, so we call him the tumbleweeds.
Sheds a lot.
He doesn't shed a lot. You see the tumbleweeds rolling around. And Dan's like, oh, we got to clean. And I'm like,
a baby dog every day.
No, right, it's not. So I'm like, you know what? These are our friends. And even if they're not our friends, they're going to love us no matter what. They're not here to see our house. Maybe they are. I don't know. I want them to always feel welcome, and I always don't, want people to look at me or my house or anything like that and think, oh, that's just, I can't be real with them because, they're on a different level. That's the enemy. Mm-hmm. And if you need to talk to anybody at any time, I always, hey, our door's open. We do have a coffee machine. Just pop right in. But after 9 o'clock, I'm checked out.
Yep.
But just remember, let people see the real you, because in all reality, it is the real stuff that gets messy.
Yeah, it is. And, that's a good valid point. That I will say that for us, you are an awesome decorator, and everybody comments on our home every time that, I'm super proud when people come over, because we have a super nice house with the way that you've decorated it up and everything. But one thing that I've heard more often than not, even in the last house that we were in, people would tell us that our home just felt homey. And I think you've accomplished something when you can actually have that homey feeling, because that's a welcoming atmosphere. I
want people to come in and feel loved.
Yeah.
And like they're at home. Kick your shoes off, throw a blanket on. I don't care. I just, I don't, it's all just stuff.
Yeah. So that's the first one.
The second
to be
one
available and
is
approachable. Yeah, go ahead.
share your story. People relate to transparency more than perfection. Share your journey, the good, the bad, and the grace in between. I was waiting for it to say the ugly. Let them see how faith has shaped your decisions, your parenting, your forgiveness, and your love. And I really like that because faith has changed so much in our lives that I can see how it has definitely shaped everything we've done since we allowed the Lord to be a big part of it, or to be the head of it. I mean, in all reality, I look at it now and it is so different. So different.
Yeah. And I grew up in a church where everybody's tight-lipped. Nobody wanted to share anything about the experiences they'd been through. And so I literally really learned nothing until the time I was 15, except that I wasn't good enough for everybody else because they're all perfect and I'm not. And so whenever we got married and then we started Life Group, one thing that we were imperative on was we were going to be open with our dirty laundry. And we had a ton of it by that
That
point.
was way after our dirty laundry, by the way.
That was after everything had happened and we had a good testimony.
We prayed about it, though, for several years before we talked about it.
Yeah, and it was a college-age young adult group. And how many times, can't count the amount of times that someone came up out of our class and said, "We are so thankful you guys are transparent." Because I'm walking through something similar to that, or I've got so-and-so that's walking through something similar to that. And it makes me feel good to know that there is some hope, that there's a way out of this because you guys opened up and spoke about that. And I don't think people realize how important it is sometimes to be a little transparent about the bad choices that you've made and how you've picked yourself back up again and got God in the middle of it and fixed stuff with God's help. It's super important for some people to hear that.
And I think that God opens the doors for that.
Yes.
To be able to share your testimony, to share what you walk through. If you're just talking about it to be talking about it, that's one thing. But I feel like the Lord really leads people to us for that testimony and to be able to talk and to pour into them.
I agree. Yeah. So make sure that you're open to doing that, to share your story and use it as a testimony to make sure that other people can have the same experiences you have in your marriage. The third thing is pray with and for them. There's something powerful about a couple knowing someone is praying for their marriage. And we get asked that a lot. We have text strings with different people and we've asked for prayer. I mean, that's a good open prayer line right there with text messaging to send back and forth. If you have those people in your life, send them a text after they've had a tough week. Pray with them when you meet. Teach them how to pray together as a couple if it's something that's new to them. And this is one of those things that even Michelle and I, we have a regular prayer life throughout the day that most things that we do, we pray at multiple times throughout a day, just over different things that we go through over our meals or for, the needs on our prayer board down in our bedroom. If we get a request during the day from someone that somebody needs prayer, we'll stop and do that. Prayer is so important. And you got to make sure that not only though are you praying for someone, but when you pray for them, you're setting a good standard for them to follow also. Because when they see that the importance that prayer is to you and how God's worked in your life, then they'll realize that, there must be something to this. So I need to make sure I keep prayer in my marriage.
It's good.
And so that's another good way to disciple someone or a couple that's younger than you, or even older couples. Sometimes they don't know either. So what's number 4?
Yeah, study the Word together, whether it's marriage-focused book, a scripture study, or simply reading a few verses during your time together. Keep the Word central. Remind them that they're building on a foundation far stronger than feelings or circumstances. I mean, that says it right there. There's not really anything else to add to that. I mean, as a Christian couple, we should be studying the Word together.
Yep.
And it is. And I want to just put this out there because the enemy is going to be like, well, you didn't do this one night, or you didn't do this, you didn't pray together and you didn't read the Bible together. Just so that the enemy likes for our marriages to fail.
Yeah.
So if you don't do it every day, that's okay. It is all right. If you don't do it for a week, it's okay. I'm not giving you the green light to never do it. But what I'm saying is that the enemy is fighting you constantly about you not being good enough and you're a failure because you can't do it. Set a reminder. Ask your spouse to help you. Be intentional about it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's some good pointers there. And as you said, I think another point there besides the Bible, I do think it's good, especially for young couples. There are tons of resources out there for marriages. And I know this does not happen real often where couples will get books and read them together. And
Yeah, we don't do that.
I read a lot of
He does.
those, but you read different kinds of books than I do. But I do see the value in that.
Yeah.
Especially for younger couples that are starting out, because there's so much wisdom they can glean.
Yeah,
from
absolutely.
Other authors and people that marriage ministries. The fifth one is encourage consistency, not perfection. Growth comes in the daily choices to love well, forgive quickly, and seek God faithfully. Encourage them when progress feels slow or when setbacks come. Pour grace over their journey, because it is easy to get discouraged.
Yeah.
If you're trying to move forward in something and you're trying to make something out of your marriage and it seems like you keep coming up against these roadblocks, it's really easy to get discouraged with that. And if it keeps happening, you may just stop trying. And that's not the point of it all. The point is consistency. God will help you. And if you keep him, if you're doing the prayer and the Bible reading and all this other stuff, God will be right there in the middle of all that, and he'll reward your consistency. And
if you're discipling a couple, as we're talking about these, and if you see that, just say, hey, I'm praying for you guys. I'm encouraging you guys. You're doing great. Just because we have, a setback doesn't mean that God's got more for you or he's working you through this, and see what he's doing in your life. What is it that you can see that he's trying to work on? What, both of you, what is it that he's trying to show you? And that, what is the reason why you can't, do whatever it may be? Let's talk about this. But you guys are doing great. I think encouragement goes a long way from another couple that's helping disciple.
Yeah, it does. That's for sure. Go ahead and share the next one.
Be there for the milestones and the mundane. Cheer them on during promotions, new babies, and anniversaries. But also show up during losses, parenting struggles, or just navigating a tough week. Legacy is built in those small touch points over time. And as I'm reading this is something very interesting to me, because if you really think about it, if you're there and you're discipling them, notice it talks about new babies, anniversaries, parenting struggles, tough week. This isn't just a week discipleship. This is just not a 3-month discipleship. This is doing life together year after year. Just, that's the way I take that. Is that how you look at it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They need to know that there's somebody that's seeing these milestones that they're going through. And there's no better way to do that than if they have us as mentors and they really look up to us and respect what we have to say. That'll go a long way, just like you said. And actually, you kind of touched on this with the last point when you was talking about the encouragement. Just being an encouraging type person to those couples, you can get miles out of that.
Well, and you build relationships. And I think it's rewarding to me to see people grow, especially in their marriages. And over time, it's just like, even as our kids, as they grow in their marriages, it satisfies my soul. It's like, I know they're growing and God's going to do something bigger in their marriage, and he's going before them and they're putting him first.
But it means a lot.
Yeah.
That's for sure. And the seventh and final point here, challenge them toward purpose. Help them see that their marriage is not just for personal happiness. A lot of times that's when they come into marriage, we all think, well, I'm just going to be happy, so I'm ready to get married, That's not the whole purpose behind it. It's also for kingdom impact.
I love that.
Help them discover how they can serve others, raise children in faith, and be a light in their community.
So good.
And that'll go a long ways.
Yeah.
And then if that's an accomplished thing that happens, guess who gets to be a part of that? We do.
Yeah.
When that marriage flourishes and they move on to be good, godly couple, and they raise their kids right, and then you see them pouring into another couple later on down the road. It's so satisfying to know that we had a part in that. God called us to do it, and we stuck it through and through.
Yeah.
So is there anything that you want to add to this episode this week as we wrap it up here?
No, it's good. Super good.
Some really good stuff here. We'll come back next week with part 2 of this. And when we do that, we will finish up what it means to have a legacy in a marriage. When it's all said and done, the true impact of our discipleship will not be measured in how many dinners we hosted, but in the fruit their marriage bears long after we're gone. If they go on to disciple another couple, raise God-honoring children, or build a legacy of faith in their own family, that's when we know that we've left something eternal, just like you and I were just talking about. It's not about creating a fan club. It's about building a chain reaction of faith, one couple at a time. And that is how legacies are born. Well, as we close up this week, don't forget to visit our website at marriagelifeandmore.com for all of our resources that are there. And if you've enjoyed this whole series, you can actually have this series in the form of a book. It's not the exact same series. You read the book, it's going to be a little different, but it follows the same blueprint. So if you want to get a copy of that, you can go to our resources page. We've got some other options there as well for marriage that you can purchase. And we've also got our newest release out, which is the verse-by-verse study in Isaiah, chapters 1 through 39. And all of that is on our website at Marriage, Life, and More. So go check that out. You can also reach us from there with a contact page if you'd like to reach out. Be on social media. Follow us on there. Make comments. Add to the stories as we go through these episodes each week. We'd love to hear from you. Well, to wrap up this week's episode, here's the question that we want to leave with you. If someone followed your marriage around for the next 30 days, what would they learn about Jesus? Not because you're perfect, but because of the way you love, forgive, serve, encourage, and stay faithful to one another. The greatest legacy that you'll ever leave won't be your house, your retirement account, or the things you've accumulated. It'll be the example of a marriage that consistently pointed people to Christ. Long after the wedding photos have faded and your anniversary celebrations are forgotten, the impact of your faithfulness can still be echoing through your children, your grandchildren, your church, your friends, and the couples that you've invested in. So this week, don't try to do something spectacular. Simply choose faithfulness. Pray together. Encourage one another. Forgive quickly. Invite a younger couple out for coffee. Open your home. Share your story. Build your marriage one Christ-centered decision at a time, because ordinary acts of obedience, repeated over a lifetime, creates extraordinary legacies. Your marriage may never be famous, but if it faithfully points others to Jesus, it'll never be forgotten in eternity. Well, that's all for this week, and we pray that your marriage is stronger and your walk with God is closer after this episode. This episode is recorded in the upper room at our Connecting the Gap studios. This is an extension of Connecting the Gap Ministries. We pray that you have a blessed week.